Welcome back to the Raw Experience. This is Karen Belinsky Matheson with the Naked Grief.
And I'm Melissa Bishop with Wholehearted Studio. Today we're exploring grief and life's complex emotions through the lens of friends to help you recognize and heal your own invisible losses.
Today's episode we call The Day Death Came Twice. The series knows it better as the one where Nana dies twice. So this episode is really all about the real true form of grief through physical death. But we see it in a lot of different forms. But the reason why Nana dies twice is because Monica and Ross get the call that something's wrong with Nana and they go to the hospital. And while the family is gathered in the waiting room, they're told to go in and say their last goodbyes. And they hear her heart or see her heart monitor stop. And Monica and Ross are in the room with Nana. And she takes a breath and halfway sits up and they almost lose their cookies because they weren't expecting that. They call a nurse to come back in and they say, "This almost never happens." And then she's gone again. Oh, and somewhere in the middle, Jack Geller, their dad, tells somebody, we don't know if she's dead yet. We're looking into it.
Oh, wow.
Which was a comic line, but it's also terrifying because it does happen where they do get that little extra resurgence at the end, and maybe it doesn't stop the heart monitor completely, but you get that little what's the great word?
Adrenaline?
Research? I don't know. They're rally. They rally. Sometimes it can be for a couple minutes or several days. Interesting.
Okay.
But the thing that we look at with Ross is he experiences some psychological grief, some physical grief through some pain. Monica gets some exposure with her mom with the nitpicking and comparing and so forth. And Monica actually gets a little bit of closure because she has a discussion with her mother about it. And we get to see how the group together shows support to this brother and sister team on the loss. And this was really relatable for me because I was in my late 20s when all of my grandparents started passing. So for Ross and Monica to be in their late 20s losing Nana like that was my life. And I definitely feel this a little bit more. And that's where it's different too, depending on the length of relationships with a person. When a physical loss or death comes like this, that can impact the way you grieve, how you move to it, and everything else. The longer the relationship, the more memories. Sometimes it's easier to understand, especially when they're older. But because of all those years, that can also make it more challenging. Every relationship, every length can really impact how you ebb and flow with your grief.
Yeah, I mean, this episode really gives us some clear pictures on how death reveals family dynamics, personal struggles, and unexpected moments of connection. So this one where Ross like literally really falls into a grave.
Yep.
Right? It's like this metaphoric, like, oh my gosh, is it coming? Is that why I fell?
Right. And yet it's also I just experienced so much. Is it the acceptance of the end of the marriage, the move, the non-parent life? Everything that's changing right now is coming into focus. Or is it the foreshadowing of all the other changes that happened throughout the season?
Right. And then he stumbles into this conversation with Rachel where he confesses his love. And what does she do? She thinks it's a joke.
I love you the most too. Oh, you just don't get it.
You know, so it's like all of a sudden, when these things happen around you, you can find yourself grasping for connection, grasping for love, or doing the things that you have been hesitant to do because you're afraid that you might not have the chance.
Right. And I think this episode, even though they don't really reflect back and ever really bring up Nana, um, this episode does set a lot of tones for some of the decisions that Ross makes, even just in the rest of season one, which obviously we're going to uncover in future episodes. But in this particular one, Ross is the one that helps his mother and his aunt um, plan for the closed casket funeral for Nana. Even though the casket's going to be closed, they want her to look nice. They need her shoes to match. They need to be comfortable. They need a day shoe, not a night shoe. And they're very particular about this.
Mm.
And they decide on a burgundy dress, but now they need a burgundy shoe. And Ross has to climb behind the dresser in the closet looking for things. He makes a comment about there might be something in the back, like he's a shoe. Let's try that again. Shoe salesman. But in the process, Nana held on to Sweet and Low packets. And while he's digging through the closet, he hits a box. All Sweet and Low packets shower down on him. And it's one of those bittersweet moments where it's like Nana saying, "Hey, I'm here. I'm a part of your planning," which is super cool. But it's also that emotional piece because you're remembering that this may be the last time you really feel like she's in the room with you. And Ross does such a good job of really showing that in his face when he's just having packets of Sweet and Low just on his body while he's awkwardly maneuvering in the closet. And also even just seeing the way family dynamics, the two
Yep.
sisters are trying to agree on how mom should be presented, and
Mm.
they actually don't bicker too bad. They were pretty much in sync, but not all families are like that. And I think that's also important to note. Death can bring people together or tear families apart.
Really can. And every family processes grief differently. And recognizing generational patterns of emotional suppression is really important in those times too. Because not everybody's geared to express emotion the same way that somebody else is. So when you have those gaps in generations, when everybody's together at a funeral, everybody's doing it differently and processing it differently. So there becomes this misunderstanding often about why didn't someone say this or do that because everyone is in a different area in that
Oh, yeah. So
emotional.
forgive me. I'm going to go on two different separate tangents. I'm going to try and stay straight so I don't annoy our listeners. So two pieces to that. Um, the one, everybody doing it different. So we have Joey at the funeral before they even go to the repast at the house, listening to the football game,
Mm,
and that's his way of just not accepting the death part of
right.
what's happening
That
because
makes sense.
you just don't want to. Now, by the time they get to the repast, Mr. Geller catches wind that Joey's got a little mini TV and headset, so a bunch of the guys go in the corner of the room and they're all listening to the game. The Giants lose. Jack Geller yells, "Now I'm depressed!" And it's only a couple hours after the funeral started, so obviously that's making waves elsewhere. Um, but yeah, to your point about the way families handle things, giving people grace too. Like there's etiquette on what to say and what not to say, and some things I actually learned when I was working in death care. Like you don't say they're in a better place or it happened for a reason. And yet these are things that we've been told throughout our life because even though they may not be the quote right things to say, they're the nice things to hear. They're not the right things to hear sometimes though. But if it is something that is, if you're a religious person, maybe you want to believe that they are in a better place, and
Mhm.
maybe coming from the right person that could help your heart. Coming from the wrong person, and if you know that these are things you're not supposed to hear, it can be offensive. By the time my husband passed, I had been in death care for several years, and when I was told these things not to say by people that showed up, it made my skin crawl. Had it been 5 years earlier before I learned things to not say, it wouldn't have impacted me like that. I would have felt comforted. But now that I know, like when I was working in the business, you just don't ever say that kind of stuff. You express your condolences, you don't give sympathy, because if you say you have my sympathy, then it can be offensive because maybe you don't really relate, even though sympathy and empathy mean two different things. A lot of times people make them say sound like they mean the same. And the last thing you want is for somebody to blow up at you during a service going, "You don't know how I feel. Don't be expressing that." So
And isn't that sometimes a pivotal point in relationships too that unfortunately happens during the grief process where someone who's grieving, you may say something that triggers them and they shut down from you. It's not intentional, but you just or if you don't respond, if you're grieving and you don't respond to messages, the person sending them can take it the wrong way when sometimes when you're grieving, you're just in a headspace where you don't have the ability or the energy to respond. And then when you finally come out of your fog, you may find that some of those people have trickled off.
and if they're super good, they don't give up. So when my father passed, my mom's best friend reached out to her several times and then didn't know what to do. So she reached out to me and she was like, "I don't know how much longer I can message your mom. I don't I don't want to bother her." And what I told her was, "Don't stop. When my mom's ready, she's going to respond. Right now, she just needs to know you're there. So you just checking in, sending a little heart emoji every now and then, that's what she needs from you. She needs to know that you've got her, and when she's ready to pick you up, she's gonna." And that's exactly what her friend needed to hear from me so that she didn't get discouraged and continued to show up until my mom was ready to talk. And that's important because everybody goes through this stuff so different. And if we don't know how to bend, we stop showing up right when they need us the most.
Yeah, and that is an ongoing situation.
As you've learned from working with
I
me.
have, it's been beautifully educational our friendship and business partnership because I didn't understand a lot of things about the grief process and you taught me it never ends and that you have trigger days and you have periods where you recluse or you pull back and I had to learn that that's okay. Like I'm just thinking of you and leave that message and when you were ready you would respond. Uh, and without that understanding, it can be taken in the wrong way.
Oh yeah, you can take it very personally. "Oh, you just don't like me." No, I'm just in a really dark place right now. Or I just gotta get through this. Or maybe I just don't want to share how emotional I am at the moment. Um and that's just it. Like and I don't, and it's not that it's from a death that I experienced 7 years ago. It's all the things that compound. So we talk about disenfranchised grief. It's losses that pile on top of each other too. It's the compounded or the complex. So it was my husband in 2018. It was the family pet a year later. It was my grandmother 2 years after that, my father a year after that, and then the last man that I loved 2 years after that. And all of those things have different triggers, and it puts you right back to day one when you lost that very first significant person in your world that can just cause you to kind of ebb and flow a little bit more in a current instead of in a steady, shallow end of the pool, so to speak. And it can get a little overwhelming, but that's where it helps to have a support system. It helps once you understand what stuff looks like. I'll never forget the first time I really had a meltdown. I had went to a football game. We had a great day, and then that night I just crawled into a ball and cried my eyes out. And my person at the time didn't know what I needed and just kept asking, and I just kept sobbing, going, I don't know. And then I looked at the calendar and realized that the date were my husband's lucky numbers, and it subconsciously hit me. And but I didn't know what I needed because I thought I was okay. It wasn't one of those planned trigger dates. It wasn't the anniversary. It wasn't a birthday. It wasn't a holiday. It was a random October day. But because I didn't brace for impact, I got caught off balance.
But the thing that I love about getting to know you, Karen, is that you have connected with your grief enough that you understand a lot of what's coming and what is so that you can share your needs with the people around you. So you're not as isolated now. And I think that's important for our listeners to understand. Like when you're going on this grief journey and they connect with you, they learn how to understand their grief process to prevent them from going into isolation and dismantling relationships, not understanding themselves enough to know that that's what's happening.
Right. You're absolutely right. Because what really can also cause you to grieve harder is when you feel misunderstood, or that you have to explain what you need all the time. It's tough because when you're the one hurting, the last thing you want to do is have to reach out and be like, "Hey, Melissa, sorry I'm not talking to you today. I'm just sad." Well, I don't want to have to tell you that.
Right.
And then it just makes me sadder because I just want you to just, luckily, she does usually intuitively know. I just want you to intuitively know that I'm just having an offbeat day, and just please excuse me.
Right.
But not everybody is blessed with being intuitive. And that can make it challenging because that's another thing that you grieve. And that's what I used to tell families. You're hurting, and yet your support system doesn't know what you need. So you're going to have to get uncomfortable and be the one to reach out and say, "Hey, I need a cup of coffee with you today. And we are going to talk about a random movie, TV show, or a concert that's coming up." Because if you set the tone and they know that it's not about X, Y, or Z, they know how to show up for you. And then when you're ready to bring up whatever X, Y, or Z is, they understand that that is not all you're ever going to need to talk about. And hopefully, if that is something that you talk about often, sorry, because I do that with Melissa a lot, um, they're understanding and kind of just are okay with it. And hopefully, if you got a really good friend, if it gets a little too redundant, they'll go, "Can you change the subject? I'm tired of hearing about them right now."
Yeah. So at the end of the day, right, what we're saying here is that grief changes you. So as you're relearning who you are through your grief process and what your change needs are, you need to bring your community around you into the fold as you're ready and start teaching them about the new you. Do you want to move to
Monica,
the Monica or the celebration of life? That's up to you.
um, let's move on to Monica because I mean,
Okay. Let's start with
mom
Monica.
nitpicks. This is when we really see like how much alike the mother and daughter are. We also learned that Nana was very similar, so it's a family thing.
Uh-huh.
But we start to understand a little bit more of why Monica has her people pleasing behaviors, her OCD cleaning behaviors, and everything else. When you've got a mom that's constantly fixing your hair because your ears are too big, or those earrings don't look right because your neck's not long enough or too long or something, or I don't like your hair like that. Like everything Monica does, it's pick, 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 pick.
Very
And
critical.
and you kind of understand without them ever having to explain if all this pick, 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 pick was going on when she was young. What do you think she was doing? Eating.
Eating.
She was stressing. She's eating.
Was
She
her
balloons
coping.
up. She gets herself overweight. And why? Because she was trying to deal with or cope with the pick, pick, picks from mom, which mom inherited from getting pick, pick, picked on by Nana. Because Monica's mom gripes about how I could never make that woman happy. And then Monica comes out and says, if you could have told her. And Monica's mom doesn't really acknowledge what Monica's trying to ask. She just blows it off and says, I think some things are just left better unsaid. And that's Monica's hint of, okay, I just don't change it and I just let this go and don't take it personal anymore because mom experienced this too. So Monica can break this cycle now because she's aware of the pattern.
So breaking generational patterns can be really difficult. So for any of you who have had the ability to do that, congratulations. Wonderful and difficult.
So yeah, as far as the celebration of life, because that's right at the end, we have the group after the services sitting in the coffee house looking at pictures, laughing at a lot of odd pictures of Ross.
Yeah.
But the last one that they see is Nana at Java Joe's in her 20s while they're sitting in Central Perk in their 20s. And I think it says me and the gang at Java Joe's. And it just shows that some things don't change because here Nana was 2 generations ahead of them doing the same thing, hanging at a coffee house with a bunch of people.
Yeah, and it helped them see themselves in Nana's generation, which was beautiful, right? And this is something that really demonstrates the healing power of storytelling. You're reminiscing, and it keeps the memories of your loved ones alive. So don't be afraid to share your stories, um, and express gratitude towards the people that you've lost and the gifts that they gave you.
One of the things that I've had problems struggling with is, and it's been easier when somebody that I've lost has lived a long life. It's a lot harder when they're young because there's a lot of questions, why and what else could they have done because their time was cut so short. But they lived. So just because they're not here doesn't mean we stop. What would they be wanting to say to us to encourage us to actually seize the day and do things instead of cocooning up like I've done for a while and not really embracing moments and opportunities. And that's where creating memorial celebrations don't just happen right after a loss. Those are things that can continue elsewhere. People have anniversaries, they have birthdays, anniversaries. One of the things that I talk about in my Healing Hearts and Group Wisdom Circle programs is um, what we do. So my youngest and I both have December birthdays, and my husband and I got married in July. And to break things up for us, we use our wedding anniversary, a day that if we hadn't had, my kids wouldn't have been here. We use it as a Christmas in July opportunity. It distracts me. It gives me a time to be able to set up my house and decorate and stay out of my own head and plan for a way to celebrate with my kiddos and my mom. And it just changes the dynamic and the perception. So it just makes things different. The day of my husband's funeral, we adopted my youngest son's cat. So even though we know that that is the day that we said our final farewell to my husband, we have an adoption day party for the cat as the real celebration. Because even though we know why she's here, it's a life that's present that we're acknowledging instead of the life we had to say goodbye to. We do something different for his birthday because I feel the day he was born was much more important than the day he died. That's just my perspective, though. Everybody has a different one on this, and that's okay because it's really how your heart needs to move through all these changes that happen. And this episode was definitely
Yeah.
big.
Yeah, so let's here's our reflection question moment. So, how do you preserve memories of loved ones? What unspoken family dynamics emerge during your times of loss? And how can you express gratitude to important people in your life right now? So, as we close, remember that grief is messy, it shows up in unexpected ways, and that connection matters. Those who stand with you through grief are your true family, whether it's by blood or not.
We'll see you next time for the day traditions broke, also known as the one where underdog gets away. It's the Thanksgiving episode, folks. We'll see you then.
See you then.